Hello everyone, touched on here with you. This is the McGilvray newsletter, Clackanarm, the Journal of the Clan McGilvray Society USA. This is a 2019 edition, and there's a neat story in here about something called the McGilvray Ferry. The McGilvray Ferry, which is a river crossing vehicle, right? A ferry. Everyone knows this, I think. It's quite a story. I want to read to you from. Takes place in the U.S. Back in the frontier days of the United States, in the Midwest, I should say, what I would call the Midwest here. I live in Boston in the East Coast, on the East Coast. It's quite a story. I'll read a little bit of it in this section to you. McGilvray Ferry, in the McGilvray Road, a Frontier Story, by Doris Brennigan Wagner. In the summer of 1851, Alexander McGilvray headed west on horseback from Portage in central Wisconsin, stopped on the banks of the Mississippi at La Crosse, and then made his way north, threading his way through the tangle of the Black River bottoms on a blazed trail. He forded the Black River, looking for land on which to establish a claim. After selecting a quarter section, he returned to Portage. In the spring of 1852, McGilvray returned and near the village of Trumpelow, built a log house and put up a stack of hay. The following spring, he brought his wife Catherine from Portage to join him. A son, Gilbert McGilvray, was born that same year. Initially, McGilvray cocked up a box of a new wagon and used it to ferry incomers and supplies across the Black. But in the spring of 1854, he joined Charles Utter in building a scow in the streets of Trumpelow. Once the winter ice was gone, they used horses to haul the craft to the banks of the Black River, launched it near McGilvray's home, and pulled across with Utter's team as its first cargo. The ferry opened the way for the first wagon road into the southern end of Trumpelow County. In 1856, the county granted McGilvray an exclusive right to maintain his ferry at what was then called Caledonia. It set the charges allowed at 35 cents for a vehicle drawn by 2 horses or a yoke of oxen, 10 cents for each horse or ox, 15 cents for a man and a horse, 25 cents for a 1 horse or 1 ox wagon, 10 cents a dozen for hogs and sheep in droves, 10 cents per foot passenger, and 5 cents per head for horses and cattle in herds. Thus began McGilvray's Ferry, which would remain in service for nearly 40 years. Alexander, whose family spelled their last name McGillivray, now this is like the clan's name that I think of, Iilivray, had been born in Inverness on July 1804 and emigrated to Nova Scotia as a youngster, and then moved to the Ottawa area where he engaged in logging. In 1849, having saved sufficient money, he moved to the United States and settled in Portage. It was probably there that he changed the spelling of his name to McGilvray, Gilvray, because so many people could not pronounce or spell the longer version correctly. In Portage, he turned again to logging, the area's economic mainstay, but the venture into which he entered proved unprofitable. He was not alone in heading west. Long caravans of people and wagons were soon pouring into the area. By 1856, much of the land in Trumpelow County had been claimed, homes built, the prairie broken for farming, and crops put up. The land was good and the people prospered. But progress did not come without difficulty. After long days bumping along in a wooden wagon or treading behind their faithful oxen, sometimes in the hot sun, sometimes blinded by rain, shuffling through the dust or plodding heavily through the mud and ooze, new settlers at last took their place in the waiting line for McGilvray's little one-wagon ferry. At times, as many as 150 teams and wagons waited in line to be carried across the river. Wow, this is amazing. After crossing the river on the precarious ferry and proceeding up the sandy banks on the western side of the Black River, rolling hills and flat grass-covered fields stretched before them to the west and the north. On the western bank of the river, they were also greeted by the stately whiteness of an inn McGilvray built and operated with the help of his brother Donald. The inn and associated tavern provided both a welcome respite for travelers and a gathering place for the thriving, close-knit community that grew up nearby. As many as 300 people were there on one occasion. Alex often entertained visitors with tunes played on the bagpipes he had brought with him from Inverness.